Hey, how's it going guys? My name is Ray and welcome to my channel. Here I'm going to share my favorite weekly recipes to hopefully inspire you guys to cook along with me. So if you're into that, maybe consider subscribing and don't forget the bell button so that you can tag along in this journey with me. So having said that, today we're talking about bacon. Who doesn't love bacon, right? Especially homemade bacon like this. Have you ever thought about making your own bacon at home, but the prospect of getting yourself sick in the process kinda prevented you from taking a stab at it? Well, I've been there guys, and you know what? Turns out there is a really safe and easy route to make your own bacon at home without risking getting sick. So that's exactly what I'm gonna share with you today. This bacon recipe is gonna be all natural, small kitchen friendly, and no smoker needed. There are only 3 key factors to this recipe really. One of them is salt, second is thyme, and third is temperature control. So as long as you have pork, salt, and an oven, that should be good. Usually when you're using curing salt, the salt kinda help you along to not get sick. If you're only using cooking salt without using curing salt, there's a really high chance that you can get yourself sick if you're not an expert. Because in order to make all natural bacon without the help of curing salt, you literally have to be an expert in determining whether the pork is already safe to eat or not. And that's the hard part guys. That's why I'm taking that hard part out of the equation and replacing it with a simpler method of determining whether your food is safe to eat or not. And that's called the Food Safety Temperature Guideline. So basically what we're going to do is just cook your pork until it reaches a safe temperature of at least 63 degrees Celsius. Or if you want to be extra cautious, you can take it up to 75 degrees and that will be already safe temperature for even making roast chickens. Alright, so enough talking, I'm gonna give you the rest of the details in the video. For now, let's cook! Alright, so first things first, you need to find yourself a really good piece of pork. The meat to fat ratio is actually up to you, but I think pork jowl and pork belly make the best bacon. And don't forget to weigh up your cut because that's gonna determine how much salt we're gonna use. And we're not gonna smoke our bacon, but we still do want a little bit of smokiness, so I'm gonna add a little bit of liquid smoke, which gonna act as a glue as well for our curing mix. For our curing mix, we're first gonna need some salt. How much? That's gonna be about 2.5% from the total weight of our pork. So for this first one, I'm dividing the total weight of the pork by 40, which makes it a 2.5% salt concentration. And this is like the minimum. So if you wanna go saltier, you can by all means go for it, but this is just the minimum for the chemical reaction to work. And my favorite bacon is smoky sweet bacon, so that's why I'm using double the amount of sugar to salt here. For roughly 25 grams of salt, I'm gonna be using 50 grams of brown sugar. But feel free to play around with the amount of salt and sugar you're using here. As long as you don't go below 2%, you should be good to go. Oh, and usually the fattier your cut is, the more salt you're gonna need to flavor the whole bacon. And once you've covered all sides of the pork properly, but you still got a little bit of rub to go, you can just use it as a topper once you've baked your pork. Oh, and also I forgot to mention, the rub I'm using here is just the basic salt and sugar, but if you want to add any kind of spices, you can just ground the spice up and add it to the curing mix before covering the bacon with it. And it's easiest if you have a vacuum sealer like this, but if you don't worry too much. You can simply cling wrap the whole pork and put it in a Ziploc bag. That should give you the same result as the vacuum seal. And now we're gonna move on to the second element of this whole process, which is thyme. Now we're gonna leave this in the fridge for about 5 to 10 days depending on how thick the pork is. Though for this one, I aimed for about a week because that's easiest to remember. And now that the jowl bacon is sorted, I'm gonna show you how to do the belly bacon as well. First, you're gonna remove the skin because you don't want that in the final bacon, right? And you might also want to remove any connective tissues or weird fat deposits like this. Basically anything that doesn't look appetizing to you. And once you're done trimming the pork, just like before, you want to weigh it up for the salt measurement. For this one, I'm gonna experiment a bit and divide it by 50, so that's gonna be about 2% salt concentration. And just like before, I'm gonna use double the amount of sugar. And you might have noticed here, but I forgot to layer my pork belly with the liquid smoke before adding in the rub. But that's fine guys, that's fine. Everything's under control, don't worry. I'm just gonna brush on the liquid smoke after I finish rubbing the pork with the salt. I've never done that before, but I don't think it's gonna make that much of a difference. Well, we're gonna find out together, guys. And also, after I added the liquid smoke, I thought, well, it's gonna be an experiment anyway, might as well add in some extra spices here. So I'm using some rosemary, black pepper, and thyme here. But bottom line is, feel free to experiment with anything you fancy. Anything that you think might be good on bacon, just add it on. It's not gonna ruin your bacon or anything. So don't worry too much, bacon is really forgiving in terms of flavor. The sky is your limit here. So yeah, all you want to do now is just to repeat the whole process again until you vacuum seal the pork. And you're gonna give it time, about 5 to 10 days. And if you're not using vacuum bag like this, it will be a good idea to flip your pork every single day, just to redistribute the accumulated liquid. But I'm using vacuum bag and I'm doing it anyway because I like it. I just like to watch the pork brine, you know. And after about 7 days, your pork gonna look like this. There will be a lot of liquid accumulated, and the pork should feel stiff because at this point, basically all the liquid that was in the pork is now out. And now just open the bag, and you want to rinse the pork a little bit, just very briefly here, just to get rid of excess salt and liquid that was accumulated around the pork. What you don't want is to draw back out all the salt content that is already in the pork right now because of the whole process, and basically removing flavors from your bacon. So after you're done rinsing the pork, you want to pat them dry as you can get them to be. And this is optional, but I like to reapply some of the liquid smoke again. And if you're using any herb or spices, you want to reapply that to the pork as well. And now finally comes the last element of this whole bacon making process, which is temperature control. To preserve the texture and color of the bacon, I'm gonna go with low and slow here. So I'm gonna cook them in a 130 degrees oven for about 1 hour, or until it reaches the internal temperature of at least 63 degrees Celsius, or in my case I'm using 75 degrees Celsius, just to show you that even if you go overboard with the temperature, your pork can still have that pink color inside. Also, another important point to note here, guys, as soon as you finished cooking and resting the bacon, you want to put it in the fridge straight away, and that's part of the temperature control element of this recipe. Food safe temperature falls below 5 degrees Celsius and above 60 degrees Celsius at all time. Anything between that is called danger zone, and bacteria will grow rapidly in this environment. So after 3 hours mark in this temperature, cooked food, especially meat and dairy, has a really high chance of being a prime breeding ground for bacteria. So as long as you keep this in mind during the whole process, you should be good. And also, it will be easier to cut the bacon thinly if you leave it in the fridge overnight first, so you get the chance to firm up properly, making it easier to cut. And as for the offcuts here, I usually just like to dice them up like this and use them in any recipes that requires cubed bacon. And same goes for the jowl bacon. You have to sacrifice a little bit of the ends there, especially for jowl bacon because it usually have a lot of fat content. And the cut that I'm having today is not particularly good as well. I would usually go for meatier jowl, but this is what I get, so that's fine. Fatty bacon is good too, I suppose. This could go really crispy. And a little bit of disclaimer here, this is all natural, so this pink color wouldn't last so long after you cut it, because preserving the pink color of the bacon is actually part of the curing salt's job. So if you want to go all natural, be prepared for a little bit of oxidation. And once I've sliced my bacon, I usually like to keep them in small vacuum bags like this, about 100 to 120 grams each, making it easier to use whenever you want. And once you have this will usually last in the fridge for up to 3 weeks, or in the freezer for up to 3 months. And as you can see, when it's freshly cut, the color is so pretty. It's still pink, but sorry to disappoint, the color is gonna change after a few days. But don't be alarmed, guys, because the pork is not going bad here. It's just that salt has the role of preserving meat. Just like when you're doing confit or beef rendang, they use a lot of salt because they want to preserve the meat. But if you want to preserve the color, you do need curing salt because that kinda helps you with the oxidation problem. Oh, and also it's always a good idea to label your home projects like this properly, just so you know exactly when did you make this. As for the rest of the bacon, I'm not gonna pre-cut them because I like the idea of having the flexibility in deciding whether I want thick, thin, or cube cut bacons. And that's why I'm just gonna bag them up like this and keep them in the freezer. So there you have it, guys, my complete guide to making your own bacon at home. I hope I'm covering all the bases here, but if I missed anything or if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll get to that, or you can even DM me on Instagram and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have. Now you might be wondering, what do I do with this or the other cuts of bacon I have right now? Well, the short answer is it's bacon, guys. You can put it in anything and it will be good. But here, let me show you 3 ways that I'm using my bacon. First, just as it is, rendered and fried until crispy, and I'm gonna be serving this cubed bacon on rice as my lunch. And the best way to get a crispy bacon is always to start on low temperature and bring it up slowly so you can render the fat properly. And once you've got crispy bacon like this, and by the way, that's all bacon fat, I'm not adding any oil to this. So yeah, once the bacon is fried to your liking, just top it onto your rice like this. And I like to add some kimchi as well, just to balance off that fattiness. And a little bit of chives and sesame seed wouldn't hurt as well, right? So yeah, that's it, guys. Super simple lunch, ready in 5 minutes. And I know it's a little bit out there, but you should try this combo before you start judging, guys. And the second way I like to use my homemade bacon is to use it in Carbonara Recipe, especially the one I just shared last week. I am not gonna repeat the recipe here, but I highly recommend this recipe. Please check that out. I'm gonna leave the link to that recipe in the description box below or somewhere in this video. But yeah, it's basically a super easy carbonara that you can make in under 15 minutes. So if you're super busy during the weekdays but you still want a hearty meal, this recipe is definitely a lifesaver. And the third recipe I'd like to share here is actually a super simple egg fried rice. So all you need for this recipe is just 1 egg, a quarter teaspoon of salt, some white pepper, about half a cup of cold jasmine rice, and just mix them really well until every single grain of rice is coated in the egg mixture. I know this looks weird, but again, just trust me guys, this ensures even egg distribution in your fried rice. Next, heat up a pan over medium-low heat, and we're gonna start rendering the fat from our bacon, and that's gonna be the oil that we're gonna use for frying our rice. So once your bacon is crispy, just set it aside and leave the fat in the pan because we're gonna use that straight away. Next, we're gonna add 1 clove of minced garlic, fry them until slightly golden, then add the rice into the pan. Then immediately start shaking the pan and stirring the rice. You basically want every single grain of rice separated here. And once your rice has been fried up properly like that, add the bacon back in along with some chives, or you can use spring onions as well. Basically anything in that vegetable category would work. And just give it one good final toss around, making sure the bacon and chives are evenly distributed. And believe it or not, that is it, guys. Super simple, ready in under 5 minutes, and all you have to do now is just to plate it. I like to serve it with a crispy fried egg like this, and of course it's not gonna be complete without some chili oil, right? Well, if you think about it, this is basically just a chashu fried rice, but replace the chashu with some bacon, right? So I don't think there will be any debate about this. I mean, this is just a cheaper version of Yangzhou fried rice pretty much. But yeah, that's basically it for today, guys. As usual, thank you for watching, guys, and don't forget to like and share this video if you enjoyed watching this. Cheers guys, see you next week.